FlatsClass fans, Captain CA here, and welcome back to the channel. This is the channel that makes you a better inshore fisherman. Today we're going to talk about a bait that is kind of like a creature bait, kind of like a crustacean, and kind of a swim bait, all in one bait. It's nothing new. It's something that's been around for the last 2 or 3 seasons, and I promote it heavily with my clientele and on FlatsClass University. But I will tell you this. There is a trick to making this bait much more effective. And I'm going to share with you right now those couple of tips, because once you know the secret, you'll be using this bait, especially on those finicky redfish. Let's go in the shop and talk about it. All right, I'm sure you're wondering, so what the heck is he talking about? Well, a couple of seasons ago, we convinced the design team at Z-Man to come up with a saltwater crab that would catch fish. Because believe it or not, there are no crabs out there that are artificial crabs that really catch fish. But we found one. And they did a wonderful job making this bait look real, okay? It has, the body of a crab, it has the legs of a crab, and it has the swimming claw, the articulating claw that kind of just paddles behind, and it looks very real. Here's the problem that I see arise, and I've had several reach out to me, and it's like, wish I could get some confidence in that, but wow, this bait just comes right up to the top of the surface all the time. I'm reeling it, and I get that. And you can tell people to reel slow, but they're not going to reel slow. They don't understand that concept of the speed ramp that you have to make this thing look very realistic. And most will want to rig this on the standard EWG rigging hook that you can buy at most tackle retailers. It might be the Mustad grip pin, it might be an owner screw lock, something like that. But none of those are going to do a really good job, because it's still going to want to climb, because you can see how wide the body is here, okay? The body is wide, and it has this little keel in the middle here. If you look closely, you'll see that keel. Well, what happens is when you're rolling with a spinning reel, it will want to pick this bait up and carry it up high in the water. This bait is really effective in depths anywhere from a foot of water, where you'd see redfish tailing, down to 3 feet of water if you let it, and deeper if you really waded a different way. But I'm going to tell you the way that's worked best for me. The first thing I've been doing is I've been employing this hook, and I think I've got enough line here to show you. This is the Pro Bullets terminal tackle piece that you can get through Z-Man. I buy these things through sodiumusa.com because they have a great online shop. This is the 3/16 ounce size, which works perfect for me for shallow water with a bait this big. When you mate these two together, you have about 7/16. That's a good bit of weight. So when you put them together and you throw it on a casting setup, you're like, here we go, we're going to talk casting rods. Well, there's a reason why I throw these casting rods. Remember that success formula I taught you guys in YouTube videos long ago, and I preach this at FlatsClassUniversity.com constantly. Lure speed, number 1. Size and profile, number 2. Color is number 3. Well, this is a Shimano SLX DC reel that I've got on. This is a Fitzgerald micro jig rod, throws everything from an 1/8 to a 1/2 beautifully. Well, this reel only picks up 30 inches of line at a time. So when I'm reeling slow, I am really reeling slow. And I can keep my crab coming through that turtle grass. I fish this a lot in checkered bottom, through the little clump oyster and shell bottom, and it just reels right through there, no problem at all. Looks very real. A redfish sees something moving, hears it, feels it, swims over, tracks it, and traps it on the bottom like he does every crab every day of the week. And it works fantastic. Here's the problem that a lot of anglers have with the crab. They're not throwing it on that. They're throwing it on a spinning rod, okay? But I've done a little research for you and I've tested a little bit. And I've been throwing it on a setup like this. So this setup is a 2500 size reel, okay? It picks up about 34 inches of line per handle turn. So it's a little faster, but with a little self-discipline and control, you can actually do this with this setup. So I'm gonna rig this crab. Let me put this down and rig this crab and show you how this works, because I really want to break down this piece of terminal tackle. So let me get started. What's really nice about these Pro Bullets is its weight forward. So as a casting rod guy, it allows me to throw this bulky floppy bait through the air really accurately. It does the same, because that's usually the complaint that you get from the Doubting Thomas group, that this will not catch fish. It does a great job. And then I will find its natural zone here. So it lays in there perfectly like that. There's a really deep slot, if you look right there, that hides that hook, that whole hook point. So it's very weedless. One of the most weedless soft baits that I use, period, when I'm fishing heavier turtle grass and whatnot. The other day we were out looking on some outside islands and some pretty healthy grass that had a lot of floating grass. If you caught that last video I did, the pros and cons of inline hooks. And I was wishing, I was like, damn, I wish I had this crab right now, because I would be kicking their tails. Anyhow, here's the other nice thing about it. You see how they've integrated the hook eye there into the head of the bait? See how nice and smooth that is right there? It doesn't catch grass, so it doesn't snag up. And this arm, because it's a thinner, or a thin spot here on that arm, this just sticks up there and waves and swims. So what's nice is I'm not under pressure to keep this thing moving and for it to be caught up in the bottom. It moves through the bottom beautifully in that grass. And then when I want to stop it in a clear spot, a sand spot, a shell clump or something like that, I can stop it dead, and it'll just sit like this, and that arm will come up and wave. And then I can start to swim again. But by using slower gear ratios, which this is a Daiwa ballistic, and if I were to guess what, I actually have the box here, I don't even have to guess. The gear ratio is 6.2 to 1, and it picks up exactly 34 inches of line per handle turn. And believe it or not, this little 2500 has 22 pounds of drag on this thing. Now I've got it loaded with 10-pound braid. This is diamond ice white braid, and I have a super long leader on here because I FG knotted this. I've got a blood knot here that allows me to have 20, but I will show you. We've got like a good bit of leader on this because I was using this to catch redfish. And then we've got, if you look real close there, you can see there's a little FG knot right there that goes through these guides. So between all of this added together, this is the ideal system. If you will reel slow and stop, reel slow for, let's just say 8 or 10 feet, and then stop, and then start again, you will be surprised. Now this rod is a medium fast rod. This is, again, an Aqua Dream. This is a 6 to 12 pound, probably 1/4 to 3/4 setup from Fitzgerald. And it's a really crisp tip. In fact, of their inshore spinning rods, I think their Aqua Dream lineup is probably the best suited for the guys that I like you know, the way I like to fish and the other guys that fish with me. It works great. But this one bait rigged this way on this 3/16 Pro bullets will allow you to catch these early spring redfish that have moved away from the creeks and they're out on these flats and they're just moving around on the grass, tailing. We've had longer warm-ups. And this is your chance in the clear water before the water gets too high to catch them on this crab. It has been working fantastic for me, and it works every spring for me, but I'll always keep this set up in the boat because most of the time I'm just fishing for trout in March and April. But I will tell you that I will keep this setup handy just because I feel as if I've got a great shot at any of the tailing fish or the fish that are just probing around that shallow water looking for something to pounce on, because this does a good job. Now, I'll throw the bugs jig a lot. You'll hear me talk about that. I'll throw some of the Ned stuff at them if it's a colder day or we got downtrending water temps. But when we got the warm up and they're not sitting still where I have to use a bugs or I have to use a Ned, they're actually moving around. And I want to cover some water. I'll use this because this is a great hybrid bait. Like I said, it's kind of like a paddle tail, it's kind of like a creature bait, and it is a crustacean. So it appeals to everything a redfish loves. If you just put that in there, it's great. Now, I will tell you this as a bonus so you're ready for it. Because if you fish that crab, there's some areas where I live here on the Nature Coast, up through the Big Bend zone, and even a little south of me, where you'll have this hard rock zone where there's lots of table rock, but it'll have this kelpy grass that kind of lays over on the surface. Well, that stuff is absolutely straight up Tangletown. I mean, it will screw you up throwing in that stuff. But I have been able to throw that bait inside of that stuff with the current, so I'm coming with it. And I have fished it through there. And I have not only caught redfish in that kelpy stuff, who's looking for crabs in it, but I've caught big gator trout. I've caught snook in there on the warm-ups, especially when we get a little further into April. But right now we're in that last part of February, and this is just a bait that I use on the warm-ups. It's just one setup that I take out there to do it. But I promise you, if you stay with that Z-Man kicker crabs this season, especially in March and April, and have it under the gunnel or in the back of your yak or something like that, when you're out there on the water and you're fishing for trout with top waters and nose hook jerk shads and maybe you're even popping cork fishing, I'm telling you, keep that crab with you, but keep it on a slower gear ratio spinning rod if you're using spinning rods. Just keep it on that. And because you're fishing it with that reel and stop motion, letting it sit for a second, and then starting it up and reeling it again, just because you're doing that, make sure that you have a long leader. You gotta have a long leader. You can't say, oh, well, I'm just gonna go with a leader this long. Or, oh, a long leader to me is 36 inches long. I mean, I want you to have a leader that is like 5 feet long, which means, depending on the rod that you're using and the guide size and all, you're gonna have to use at least the modified Albright, or you're gonna have to take the time and tie an FG knot. But either one of those two knots does really well in this setup. Now, I blood knotted that little piece of bite tippet at the bottom of this just because I'm targeting redfish. So, if you want to add one more bonus to it, add a little bit of rattles. If you put a rattle in that crab, especially doing what I'm telling you to do, you know, bumping it through that grass, and it has that little bit of sound, I promise you, you will get some aggressive fish, especially on those days where you're looking at water temperatures that may start in the morning, you know, in the low to mid 60s, but will warm up 10 degrees by the end of the day because it's a sunny day. This will do it. It's a good system. That crab is a profile that they react to positively, and when they hit it, it's like they punch that thing. I mean, they want to eat it. They don't like sip it like they would a minnow or something. They run down and they try to pin that thing on the bottom. And that's why that weight forward Pro Bullets head is good for you. The 3/16 ounce weight one works perfect for me with a slow retrieve. If you're working current or deeper water, naturally go to a 1/4. If you're working super skinny or something like that, you could go to an 1/8, but I'd rather have the 3/16 because it keeps it down on the bottom. And fight the urge to constantly reel, please. Don't do that. That's not always the answer. All right, if you're enjoying what you're learning here on FlatsClass YouTube, give us that thumbs up and hit that notification bell because you don't want to miss any of these tips. And also, here's another piece of advice I'd like to lend you. If you think you're learning a lot here, you should see what we're doing at FlatsClassUniversity.com, because over there we're putting courses together and we've got a unique community that shares a lot of information. And believe it or not, I hate to tell you, I don't put everything on YouTube. A lot of the stuff that we do remains right there at FlatsClass University, especially the stuff that modules together and makes one big course. So if you're really wanting to become a serious angler, consider FlatsClassUniversity.com. All right, so all I have for you today. I'll be back tomorrow with another lesson. In the meantime, you guys keep those rods bad.